And thank you for joining me for another episode of Love Your Work. And this is our opportunity to talk with people who love the work they do so that you can see all the possibilities of the different kinds of work people do and that it is actually possible for you to love your work. So today I have with me Dr. Melanie Keller, and she is a naturopathic doctor. And so we're going to talk with her about what it is she actually does, and then a little bit about her journey to getting to this work that she loves and some of the great lessons that she's learned along the way. So, Dr. Melanie, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. I don't think I've talked to a naturopathic doctor before. Can barely get
Okay,
that off my tongue. It's a
pretty
tongue,
good.
it's a tongue twister for sure. So tell us what exactly a naturopathic doctor is.
That's usually what I have to say. I'm a naturopathic doctor. Do you know what that is? So I'm very used to that. And most people will say, no, I don't. And so it's a doctor of natural medicine, but more specifically, for example, we go through medical school, we sit for board exams, and the answer I'll give is if a medical doctor, conventional medical doctor, is sitting for that board exam, they're going to be tested for 200 medications, standard pharmaceutical medications. So we're tested for those same 200 drugs, but in addition, 200 herbs or botanicals and everything about it, and 200 homeopathic remedies, in addition to the interactions of them all. So we have that level of education where we are able to look at somebody's assessment and say, okay, should they use a medication, or is there maybe an herbal or a dietary
Mm.
recommendation that can complement it? Somebody wants to reduce their blood pressure medication. We understand the mechanisms and we can find that fine-tuned balance to bring people to what it is that they want. If they want the medication, great. If they want alternatives, we're able to provide that as well.
And how did you decide to go that path instead of what does one say, traditional medicine, or
Sure.
is
Or
that the
allopathic
distinction? Okay.
is the other term. Interestingly enough, allo meaning other. So I kind of think we're the other, but
They're
but
really the
absolutely,
other. You're doing it the way
right?
nature intended, right?
Correct. That's what I find interesting. But so that's the term allopathic, and then or conventional, and
Okay.
then we're natural or naturopathic. So interchangeable, naturopathic. And my journey was that I struggled with my health. I grew up in Southeast Alaska, predominantly from the age of 6. So I was around pristine air, water. My family was in commercial fishing. Yet I struggled with my weight as a child. And it was really difficult, I think, for my mother, bless her heart, who was feeding me very well. And we were exercising and all these things that didn't pan out to what didn't come out on the scale.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a majority of my life, not only as a child, in and out of doctor's offices, getting my thyroid tested, all of these things. And it was like, you kind of wanted something to be wrong with you, but there really wasn't. And then going into my 20s, hormones hitting, and I just continued to gain more and more weight, alcohol introduction, but just anything, quite frankly. And even as I was maintaining my caloric intake of 12 to 1500 calories, I was still gaining weight,
Mm.
going to weight loss centers, and they'd run my labs and they'd look at me and they'd look at my labs and be like, you're not pre-diabetic, all these things. And I'd be like, but look at me. And I got this really strong feeling that everybody thought I was cheating.
Oh,
You must not be
yeah.
doing it right. You really must be hiding something. And that was my childhood. Was like, I grew up in a small town in Southeast Alaska where we had 22 people in my graduating class of high school. So if I went to the grocery store, you were hanging out at the deli, I felt like I was
Right.
Big Brother.
Everybody could
All eyes
see
were
from
on me,
right.
right? My mom was gonna find out. And even if my friend was eating that Hot Pocket, I was like, don't be near me, because that guilt by association,
Right.
that's how much I struggled, right?
Wow.
And I went to a doctor of osteopathy. I looked them up, board certified, all these things. I was presenting myself like, look at me, I need help, going to colon hydrotherapy, did everything. Nothing was working. And I finally, actually, it was a talk show Tyra Banks talk show. And she was showing these different diets. And one of the women did this 30 days of raw food. And it was raw food, meaning it's not cooked, it's in its free form, and it's predominantly vegetables. You take out all animal protein. And I was so inspired by this woman's outcome in 30 days that I bought the book, I got all into it, and I lost 70 pounds effortlessly, really, but eating all this wonderful good food. And I actually took everything with me back home to Alaska for Thanksgiving, if you can believe it. I made a raw pumpkin pie, and everyone was like, they were so amazed by my weight loss that they're like, sure, we'll do this. And it was by that experience that I was like, this is the medicine. Food is my
Right,
medicine.
right,
And this is what I'm supposed to do. I'd been chasing graduate school programs for health coordinators and for Ford, or, these big kind of, and I was like, that's not it, because I wasn't healthy yet. I wasn't the representation of what I wanted to show the
right,
world. And
right.
so it wasn't until I saw food change, food be medicine for myself, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I found naturopathic medical school, and it was a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge to get in. It is grueling work, and yet I did it, and I'm happier than ever.
That's really cool. Yeah, so did no one else in your families was affected like you were? So you guys are all eating the same food until you started doing some other things trying to adjust your weight. Were they not impacted?
Meaning, were
Why did
they
it
overweight?
present so much in you and
Well,
others?
that goes further into why I love my work even more, because I then land on, I'm in naturopathic medical school. I actually lose over 100 pounds in medical school. Okay. And
Wow.
everybody sees,
Which I
okay.
would imagine for most medical students, it goes the other way, right?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. So I was conquering the stress, and that's what I did. I learned so much about my body. And so it was in that process that I kind of just got a little sidetracked, because you're like, oh yeah, I did that. I'm really proud of myself. Um, but it's that through this work that I got so intrigued by the gut. And it was a lottery of one of my mentors. And I said, I'm just going to go for that. You have all these internship hours you have to do, but I was like, I'm just going to go for that one thing. And I got the lottery, and it literally does feel like I got the golden ticket in the chocolate bar, because from there, he had just written a book about this condition called small intestine bacterial overgrowth,
Okay.
or the acronym is SIBO. So really, it's a big mouthful for just stating the obvious. We have too many bacteria in the wrong place, the small intestine. And what was interesting to me is I was like, that sounds familiar. And I'm reading the symptoms, and I'd had constipation my entire life. In fact, there was a point in my 20s where I was like, I'm going to die of colon cancer.
Mm,
Like, this was before medical school. I was like, because this doesn't come out of me. I'm toxic. I'm overweight. Like, I'm doomed. And so when I'm reading about this condition, I'm like, wow, this sounds like me. And I get this lottery, I get this opportunity to shadow with him. Even after graduating, I continued to shadow with him while studying for my boards. Thanks to Facebook, I connected with him on because I'm in Portland, Oregon. I graduated from naturopathic medical school. You're one of how many people standing on the corner going, natural medicine, anyone? And so needless to say, it was like, oh, what am I going to niche my brand myself in? And so I kept seeing him out in different Facebook groups and gatherings, and slowly but surely, I think he was impressed that I went ahead and got my practice started, in that city. And he invited me to join a clinic that they were forming at the college. So the clinic then developed into symposiums, and now it's a big project that's continuing to run smoothly. And we're getting the word out about this condition, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, because 80% of people who have irritable bowel syndrome also have SIBO.
okay.
So
And
this
is this
overlap.
different than leaky gut, similar, or it's like in the same family, or how is that related?
It's an excellent question, because they get overlapped. So I'm
Okay.
going to get a little doctor talk and say there's studies that show that 50% of SIBO positive patients do have intestinal permeability or
Okay.
leaky gut. And when you eradicate or move out, you clear out that, because they're not bad bacteria. When
Right.
they're in our large
Right.
intestine, they're our friend. Okay. So I just tell people they just went to the wrong room at the party. We just have to push them through to this
Love
other
that
compartment.
analogy. Yeah.
All room doors open. Hey, then they're our friend over there. But when they're in this compartment, they're, getting the party started, you can feel bloated. I've had men say they feel, quote, 9 months pregnant, and it may visibly look that way or may not. And so, yeah, there's that piece of when we eradicate or we get the static out of the way, 50% of those people who have the leaky gut, they heal
Okay.
spontaneously. So I call it the static or the smog, right? If your car is if your body is your favorite vehicle, mine's a Tesla, I don't want smog on my Tesla.
Right. Right. No, that makes sense, and it all works together. So if you can clear up one thing, it clears up another thing, and
Oh, it
so
clears up so many things.
right.
We have an
Right.
association to anxiety, to sleep, to rosacea. I mean, the list of associated conditions is actually quite long. And interestingly enough, weight gain.
Right.
So one of my colleagues' wife is an endocrinologist, and she does bariatric surgery. And we have found, or they found rather, that if people have this particular microbe, they lose 1/3 of the weight expected. So it turns out when I go back to my story of I was eating 1,300 calories or 1,200 calories, I'm 16 years old, mind you, on this diet or wherever, it was predominantly my life. And yet we're gaining weight. It's because we might have these microbes. They exponentiate the calories.
Mm,
So
mm,
you are eating 1,500 calories, but guess what? In your body, it's 4,000.
wow.
And that's how I was gaining the weight. So when I eradicated these bacteria or microbes, that one in particular that makes that particular gas is a different microbe, but they'll affect our nutrients. And so it's odd because in some people it'll attribute to weight gain, and then I can have that same gas come up positive in someone who's losing weight.
Because they're
Like
not
tremendous weight
absorbing the
loss.
nutrients. Okay.
Correct. That
Interesting.
static, right? The smog is on their car, and here they go. I just dropped 30 pounds like that. And of course, they're going to the doctor and getting worked up for the worst case scenario
Right.
because it's
Right.
so shocking, right? And then they'll be like, I wasn't trying, So thankfully, I really appreciate having all forms of medicine because we need each other, right? I say, great, they worked you up. They made sure there's nothing, that you're okay. I understand what's going on here. But
Interesting.
oftentimes people are left to, I'm working with somebody right now who's been a patient at Cedar Sinai for 11 years. And it was working with me that they were like, that now it's finally, we're getting somewhere. So to my
That's
horn there,
awesome.
but yeah, it's really, that's why I love my work.
That is so awesome. And I love, I've talked with a couple of people here on Love Your Work and in other contexts that it is their own health journey, right? That opens the eyes to that there's another way. And so I've talked to um, a coach who's come on and she's talked about her journey, had a similar thing where she was having trouble with all sorts of inflammation and weight gain and all sorts of things, and it led her down the path to she's about eliminating toxins not just in your diet but in your environment, and talks about how to go about doing that. So I love these stories where you take something that you've been through and then now you're sharing it and helping other people on their journeys as well. So it sounds like you did not start off looking to become a doctor. What
No, no.
when you were a kid, what was your vision, or what was your dream job when you were a kid? What were you planning to
Well,
do?
my mom will say that I had my Fisher Price doctor kit, so she swears I was always going to be
Oh, maybe you
there.
were
And
going
then
to be a
she
doctor,
says,
right?
I also, yeah, she also says I plopped down to her next to her once and said, I'm going to be famous. And she was like, oh yeah. And she's like, how? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to be famous, you know? And she's like, okay. I was in a lot of community theater in that small town. I was very involved. And so I think I thought I was going to go into some form of communication anchor. I don't know.
Okay.
That's the direction at that time. You know, you're the small town girl that's like, woo, the sky's the limit. And interestingly, I call it my mom and I are very cosmic, if everybody's okay, that she had a reading once and it was her own situation. And she's like, oh, I had this reading from this clairvoyant, let's say, while we were in Canada. And we're driving back. This was just a trip that we like to take. And she's like, oh, and by the way, she said you're going to be a doctor. And we both just burst out laughing. I mean, it was like, right, like how silly. I went to did this reading and, you know, but and it was like, I remember thinking it just, something stuck there, if
Mm,
that makes sense. It was like I laughed because I hadn't even finished my undergrad, but it, like I got this zing or this resonance in my body that I was like, And then I was, my undergraduate took me 10 years to do. I was on the 10-year plan. And I had a mentor who saw me in my program. Of course, when you're a non-traditional student, you're more mature, et cetera. And I stood
right.
out and he said, you know, he pulled me into his office. He was the director of kinesiology department at UNLV. And he said, I'm just going to give you this kind of story in terms of like, when you get your undergraduate degree, you've gotten to this level of a hill, or you're in the valley and you could rise up to a hill. He says, however, when you continue your education, when you're at a mountaintop, you can see, and it's not to be above anybody, it's to see so that you can help see
Mm,
what's coming.
I like that. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's motivational, because going into debt, going into 4 more years, not having a job yet, all of these things. And I'm glad I took my time with it because I do truly enjoy. And I will say, when I started the medical school, they had a fall admit and they had decided to add in a winter admit. It's the first cohort they had. And they did not inform us that when we started in January, we would be, quote, catching up.
Mm,
So my first term of medical school was 31 credits.
wow. Wow. I,
Yeah.
I, I'll
I
just
finished
say
with
this.
grade.
I had aspirations of being a doctor once, and I ran into organic chemistry. That was the end of that. So I can only imagine 31 credits in your first year of medical school, first semester, even how daunting that had to have been.
And like when you said stress, yeah, I was like, you're adding them up. Wait, 60 hour, 80-hour weeks. Yeah. So, but I'm so grateful. And yes, organic chem was also we got to know each other. I did that as an
Well,
elective.
at least you persevered. You kept going.
Yeah.
I just like threw my hands up. I was like, okay, I'll find something else to do.
Yeah, you find what works for you, right? And I would love to hear about the person you mentioned earlier, because I'm all about environmental toxins as well. I haven't mentioned that, but
Absolutely.
that's
I will connect you. Her name's Cheryl Meyer. And so she's a coach in, some of the communities. And she has a Love Your Work um, episode. So it's here in the group, but I will certainly connect you. I think you guys would be good together. Um, you leave Alaska, you are on this 10-year plan of college, and I think I was on a similar plan. I actually haven't even stopped to add up how long it took. I don't even want to know.
that's good.
But so you're on this plan, but at some point is it more committed? You said motivated. You've got someone who's talking to you about being on hilltops and surveying all you can see. At what point did it just really solidify? I'm on the right track. This is the right thing, not just because I had an experience that sort of led me here, but this is, I feel like this is my jam. What was that for you?
It was, and here I'll even say this, growing up where I did it, there is the, I'll call it the hippie crowd, the granola, and so there was this part of naturopathic medicine that you want to have a wide spectrum and diversity of all people. And yet there were some moments in our first little gathering where we're in the grass barefoot, and it was very granola for me, let's say, right? And I was like, oh, I want, like, wait a minute, we're in medical school and we should be like this way. And yet that's what I enjoyed about it. Was I was like, I always, and now I encourage people, and I do earthing all the time. I'll remind people of the movie Pretty Woman, where I'm like, you need to cop a squat and go get your feet in the grass. And so that's the beauty of it. Was once you got over the, I don't know, the whatever my thing was, the mean girl or whatever I was having
Mm-hmm.
about it, that I was like, oh, I am connecting, and this is nature, and I do feel this, and I can feel and sense the difference of focusing on my breathing. And when I got out of my own way, I guess I was like, oh, there is this innate ability for the body wants to heal. The body does not exactly want to age and turn decrepit. I was an exchange student after high school to Switzerland, and we were going to this birthday gathering for, I think it was a 104-year-old. And I was waiting for this, I'm the American going, oh, where's the, person coming, probably in a wheelchair or
Right, right.
frail, kind of, oh no, here he comes from the field, walking, like, I was like, wait a minute, what? That was amazing to
Right.
me. So that combination of saying, oh, the body wants to heal itself. It has this wisdom. It can regenerate our liver, etc. I want to be part of that. And I want to know when we need the medicines, when we need the surgery. I'll be honest, there was a time where, and I have thought that I've had a brain tumor, and I've been worked up for one. So do I want to have a brain surgeon on my team? Yeah. But have I used natural medicine to cure it or reduce the need to have more workup?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Wow. I I'm amazed that one that well, no, I guess I'm not amazed because I get it. It's about finances, right? I was gonna say I'm amazed that there are not more naturopathic doctors, that this is not the route that more people are interested in taking. But the reality is that there's money elsewhere. And so and that's another discussion for another time. But so I'm interested, are you still on a raw food diet, or how does this manifest itself in your life daily?
Excellent question. I have a percentage raw, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So I take a little bit of everything. That's why I like to tell patients too, is take a little bit of any and all of your diets that you've ever been on. We might as well acknowledge them. I mean, the positives, right? I say stack them all up and then pick the things that you like. And so there's so many things from the raw food diet. I mean, the fact that zoodles or zucchini noodles are hip now, I'm like, yeah. Oh, now I can make some amazing avocado mousse. There's just, oh, definitely. You want to have some good recipes from all of your experiences.
Yeah.
There was a time where I was super keto paleo. Well, that was leading to more of my constipation.
Mm,
And I had to figure out, because it's the fat, and that goes back to these microbes. So the microbes and fat there's a relationship there. And until I figured out my own, it's referred to as epigenetics, or my own genes and how my genes get turned on and off, I had to figure out that I need a certain amount of bile. And bile is naturally an antibiotic. And bile also helps break down the fat that I was having trouble with. So when I got this report about me more specifically, I was like, oh, what if I support my body to make bile better? And it's made all
mm.
the difference. and I don't suffer from the constipation, the subsequent weight gain, you know, all of these things. I was like, oh, I had to go under the hood, get the manual out, and give myself a tune up. And I have to tune up. It changes when I'm around my hormones. It changes if I'm stressed,
Mm,
right? So you have COVID happen, you have to go, oh, check yourself, because these are some things. I experienced sudden grief. Love of my life came into my life, suddenly gone. And boom, you get hit with, this is how grief affects my physiology. And now that
mm.
still learning from. But you know, in the moment, you might not recognize it. And it wasn't until I was like, this significant event happened and everything in my life has shuffled. So therefore, there's something here. And you get to that underlying root cause and address
Okay.
that.
Okay, so how does one get started? You call up a naturopath, and then you go through some series of testing and testing what sensitivities to foods, allergies to food, impacts the presence of this bacteria or over presence of this bacteria. What is the process that you use? And if someone was interested in getting started with, say, working with you or someone else, how would they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, with any naturopathic doctor, I think they'll have a process, right, of going through an intake, and I really do advise that somebody work with somebody directly. There's many practitioners who might have a course or this or that. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? But it's really best to work directly with the doctor so that you can. And I always say, tell them everything, even the stuff that's kind of embarrassing, you know, or oh, or does this really matter? You have no idea. Sometimes that's exactly what we need to know to unlock the key there. So um, that's one thing. Working with me, I have my website, SIBO Solution. So SIBO is that condition I'm talking about, solution.com. That gives somebody the ability to work with me in the state of California. That's where I'm licensed.
Okay.
And we get started with essential, like, testing. It's actually a breath test and a blood test. I personally don't order stool tests. It's just because many people have already had them done, and I've seen hundreds of them. And I also don't order food sensitivity testing most often because I'm getting to the root causes to why they're having the food sensitivity and the leaky gut.
Okay.
And
So
I'm
there's
not a
so when just hold that thought, when there's a commercial on TV that says, figure out your food sensitivity and your allergy, you're saying there's even another step before, or steps before that, to actually figure out why that's happening, not just that it's happening.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's my specialty. I have the people who come to me already on or are down to 5 foods, say these people who have lost the weight. And I'm showing them how. I'm like, I don't care what your food sensitivity says. There's a reason why that's just telling me there's more of a problem, right? Why is your immune system having that reaction? And oftentimes on those tests, people will say, that's what I eat every day. And I'm like, exactly. And your immune system remembers it. I was one of them. So I've taken the test. And I will say that did get some improvement from it in the moment, but it
Right.
wasn't until I reduced the underlying cause of why I was having the sensitivity that I can eat whatever I want now.
Okay.
Now, mind you, if I come in contact with gluten, I'll know it. I get my responses and I know what to do about it. And I have, so I don't let it accumulate, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
But
ultimately, it becomes about knowing yourself, knowing your body, knowing what works and what doesn't work. You can then move from a place of being informed and take on those consequences, as I guess you could say, those consequences that you choose in a moment, and then know how to, let's recover from that or whatever, right?
exactly. And
Okay.
that's my intuitive edge doctor. So that's kind of, I like to say, look, I can solve your SIBO. I'm known for this. I've been an expert in this for quite a while. And they might just be like, just fix this. But within that process, they have this aha of like, wow, you're teaching me all these other things. I say, yes, this is how we keep it away and at bay. And that's when I get into more, environmental toxins, our mental, our mindset. I'm also an intuitive. And so oftentimes there's something going on in somebody's life or somebody who's crossed over. It's
Mm.
only if you're comfortable with that aspect of me. But absolutely, I'll say, look, you have this trip planned, you're going to London, and we get to know each other really well. I'll say, take a pause, careful with the gluten, you see, like, so that I'm teaching them about their body and they're like, wow. So
This
that's
is
my
so
high
interesting.
end 6-month program. Yeah. Cause then they love it. They're just like, and we have more customized testing for them, right? What do
Okay.
they need in the moment? Yeah. So.
And is any of this, like, I'm going to ask the question, covered by insurance to help, or?
Sure. So I'm out of network. So I'm a cash practice. When it comes to SIBO solution, absolutely. I provide super bills. I'm really good at coding, et cetera. And many people have said, depending on their coverage, I'll always say, submit the super bill to your out of network deductible. Well worth it. You might not get reimbursed, but at least it's going towards that. And then with my Intuitive Edge program, it is a little tricky because it's a large lump sum program and it's all functional testing. So
Okay.
the SIBO side of things are standard of care. I can very easily code those, and that's my goal, is to have as much coverage or get compensated for that out of pocket. But I'm also saving people thousands of dollars. So
Yes.
many people have seen me after doing this for years, and I'll say my first appointment, I'm looking for results within 2 to 4 weeks, and they're like, what? No. And I'll say, well, yeah, I mean, we at least need to get moving forward, right? And I'll tell my colleagues, they'll say, if you've been working with somebody for 3 to 6 months, you need to make some changes and refer. That's my professional opinion.
Wow. That just, I'm absolutely amazed. Again, I don't know why, because speaking of intuitively, I know the answer is exactly what you said. Our body is created, evolved, however one chooses to see it, to heal itself, to take care of itself. And if we feed it, fuel it, love it properly, it will do that. And all this other stuff, that's not really food, that is, environmentally toxic, and all of that prevents it from happening. So um, I'm, I'm I'm so happy that you came on. We kind of got down a path that does not fully love your work, but that's okay. I think what you shared is really important. It is extremely helpful. I was all wrapped up in your story, so I
I
appreciate that.
love my
I want
work.
to
Yeah,
ask.
all of this. This is what, and I love that I'm getting the message out about small intestine bacterial overgrowth. I actually just heard back from a producer this morning. So it's part of my energy. They just love it. And they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm
I
like,
think it's
yay. So,
amazing.
yes.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. So I want to ask you, just so that I cover a couple of love your work things. So we talked about, obviously you love your work. You'll talk about it forever. I'm willing to sit and listen forever. Um, and then I'm going to actually go and do something about it. I'm going to look your site up, and we may be working together,
Oh.
because I've got some things that I'm thinking need addressing in this area. But did you have any jobs that were, from the time that the psychic said you were going to be a doctor and you decided to go to medical school and all that? Have you had done any other work? Did you have like a job as a teenager? And if so, what did you do?
Oh goodness. I'm the one at one workplace that she's like, how old are you? You've done what? And I'm like, oh, I think I just needed to do many things. And I also feel that it made me a well-rounded person. So
Mhm.
I was working since I was a child. I actually I was a dancer with a native Indian group, like a native tribe of Alaskans called the
Wow.
Chilkat Dancers. And we danced for the cruise ships and in a tribal house and in an auditorium. So I actually was doing that from around 7 years old. I did it for 13 years.
That's
And my
really
family,
interesting.
yeah. So, and I'm very passionate about that group. We were invited, I was on Good Morning America. We were invited to opening ceremonies at Barcelona. So
Oh,
I was
cool.
very, very honored to be included in that culture. So, and a unique experience for someone like myself to have gotten that culture. And then my family was a commercial fishing family. So from around age 16 on, for a few years, I was a commercial fishing crew. And then
What was
prior
your
to
favorite
Monday,
part about that?
being really one with your food. I
Mm,
mean, and I will say I am quite the seafood snob. I was going to say connoisseur. I am a salmon connoisseur. Yes. Yes. When you know exactly where your food is coming
Alaska
from.
salmon, the best salmon, right?
Yes. Yes. So, and a lot of tourism.
Yeah.
Prior to medical school, I was a director of an education program for a massage school. Had been a massage school student myself, graduate. I injured myself. And so when I graduated from UNLV, my undergraduate was in kinesiology and post-workforce education. So I came in, I helped develop the massage program, I helped develop their national board certification class, et cetera, and became the education director. And initially I was also side job doing a billing business for massage therapists, because in Nevada, the billable rate was $45 for 15 minutes. And I was like, here we go. Here's my business. I'm doing this on the side. I got access to these amazing massage therapists, and the doctors weren't into it. They
Mm.
said, what's for me? It was very Vegas. It's the what's my percentage? And I said, well, unfortunately, we have the anti-kickback law of 1976. And so I cannot give you a kickback. But you can provide rent and you can provide these service for your patients, and they'll be happy, and tell everybody. And I pounded the pavement for quite a while, knocking on doors. No one was interested. So I
Wow.
said, you know what? I'm going to become the doctor and I'm going to prescribe it.
Love that. I love that. Absolutely. And it goes, it's part of a holistic lifestyle, right? It's addressing every part of the system, which is so important. And wow. Yeah, an interesting life, an interesting journey. What would you say is one of the, whether it's your clients or your patients, or maybe someone you're just talking to, what is one of the biggest life lessons that you've learned that you enjoy sharing?
Well, to listen to your body,
Mm.
that you are the wisdom. I like to tell patients, I'm the coach, you're the athlete. You know yourself best. Or I'll ask them, like, describe it to me like I'm in your body. I'll close my eyes and listen to them, because I want to empower them that they do know. They know this is this knowingness in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so if something, for example, I was going to say, you don't have to have probiotics, and that surprises people. But when you have a knowingness in your body and you try some probiotics or any food sensitivity, you can say, nope, when I have that cheese, yep, nope, this is what happens to me. It's clear. That's a knowingness. And now it doesn't have to be, I'm dairy free, I'm blah, 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 I'm
Mhm.
following something like doctor, this is anti-inflammatory. It's because it's right for your body. And maybe 2 years later, you have a little cheese, or do you see what I mean? Like
Right.
that. That's the knowingness and a connection to yourself, because when you connect to yourself, you can connect to others in a next level way. Your business improves, your relationships improve. And so it's like a ripple effect. We can love and know ourselves.
I love that, and I'm going to let that be the final word. We get to love ourselves, know ourselves. We get to love ourselves. Oh, it's beautiful. So, Dr. Melanie, thank you so much for making the time to come on and chat with us today, to share about your work journey, to share about the work you love, and so much about helping us to live healthier lives, all throughout our bodies, our mind, our spirit, and bringing all those pieces together. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for stopping by. Love your work. And if you want to connect with Dr. Melanie, her contact information will be in the post. Reach out to her, or if you're not in California, reach out to someone else that is a naturopath that could possibly help you get to a place where you're living a healthier life, where you can know yourself and love yourself better. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.